Good to connect here. So Space is the new single. When did you record it and or write it with relation to everything that's going on in the world?
We actually wrote it in, I think it was late September last year. So we had Colin, our producer, fly out to Australia to kind of work on a few things. And we just kind of set up in a beach house down at a place called Avoca Beach on the Central Coast. And it was a good time, stressful time as it came out. But yeah, no, it was good. It was kind of weird to think that, we wrote that song back then, and it just kind of, by the time it actually came out, it just felt, obviously Corona going down with everything that's happened, it's definitely felt oddly, ahead.
Sorry to cut you off there. What about the music?
No, that's all right.
When was that made?
Music video we actually did make in the middle of, I think we only made it, we actually shot it, I think 2-3 weeks before, not even 3 weeks before the song came out. So obviously we shot it with social distancing very much in mind. We're following all correct procedures, etc.
Right.
Obviously, which gets tricky when you're working in a hotel room situation, but we're all more or less we're following the guidelines and procedures. I mean, Canberra had been COVID free for a couple of weeks at that point, so we were not too concerned, but we just definitely did try to do it the right way for sure.
When did the lockdown start for you guys? Because here in New York, it kind of started, I think, on a Wednesday or Thursday night in the middle of March. Just all of a sudden, news started flashing. Tom Hanks has it, and he's in Australia, and the NBA is shut down. But of course, your country has handled it a lot better than ours has.
We are lucky that obviously we have a smaller population spread out over the same amount of space. So I mean, that geographical distance certainly helped minimize the spread compared to especially New York, where everyone's on top of each other literally. Yeah. So we definitely don't take that for granted. But I think lockdown, it was kind of late February, early March. I think everything started kind of looking pretty severe. Like I was working an internship actually at a design, like an app design company. And that would have been end of February, early March, I think it was. Yeah, that I was finishing up there, and they were talking about like, okay, next week we might actually have to start working from home. So let's do a trial day next Wednesday. And by the following Monday, they were all working from home. So, it's been a pretty wild ride. It's hard to, it's just strange to think of normality being that, 3-4 months ago now.
You just said something very interesting. App design internship. Wow. Have you always been interested in programming or design?
I mean, I've always done some sort of graphic design. I've always been involved in kind of what we're doing from a visual standpoint. Through school, I did a bunch of multimedia projects, and various things from like music production through graphic design and kind of multimedia formats. So it's kind of obviously creating career outside of the band. Like, love doing what we do, but we'd be kidding ourselves if we thought this was going to be a forever thing. So it was just a chance to get out and kind of do some working what's called UX design, which I won't go into too much now because that's a very long conversation. But it's been really interesting to see how skills and I guess experience from music world and what we're doing, there's a lot of actual commonalities between that and the human-centered design space. So it's been really interesting to transition.
Being 12 or 13 years into the band now, you guys kind of are veterans. When did it really become a career, or at least a full-time thing, as opposed to we're going to do 1 gig a month and play for our friends and family?
Yeah, I think it was 2011 that everything kind of it felt like that was when I left my job. 2012. 2012. Yeah, it was when I kind of quit my job because I couldn't turn up to work. So I figured that was the right thing to do. But yeah, no, we kind of got together, and obviously end of 2008, early 2009, as more or less the lineup we have now. Obviously, sans Jamal, the keyboardist, who left in 2014. But like we'd kind of spent time just doing shows and stuff. And then, that 2012 was when touring really kind of started in the first half of that. So maybe it was 2011. I've lost track a little bit. It's a while ago.
Either way, almost a decade now, which is really impressive. How many people really stick with their job for more than 3 years these days?
Yeah, true that.
Been there 2 years, got to move on. But as you also just pointed out, your lineup has been consistent except the keyboard situation, which was still pretty long term and all that. I guess that means everyone's friends outside of touring.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you do feel like a married couple with 5 people by the end of it, where you don't talk as constantly as you used to, and you feel like you often have the same conversations, and it does feel like an old tight relationship at times, but at the same time, we love doing what we do together, and I think that that's kind of the framework for our friendship these days. And a lot of us are closer in different formats. Like Joel and Coops, for example, have been best mates since they were like 12, 13. So
Yeah.
actually even younger. Anyway, they've known each other for years, and obviously they have a much deeper connection than some of us might have. But yeah, I play games with Parky every now and then over Xbox Live and things like that. So we are definitely friends, but I think we found that most of our interactions these days are in the context of band stuff. But I mean, that's me saying that. I live 5 hours away from the other guys, so I think they see each other more than I do.
Does that mean that there's footage of high school talent shows and playing covers and all that from their pasts?
There are definitely videos from, I was actually logged into a Vimeo the other week, which we hadn't used in years. I think Coops had just put some stuff up there from very, very early days, and it was those videos are all very much unlisted, very much private, very much not getting shared to outside the band. But there's definitely old stuff around that's a good laugh. There's a few things that are still findable on the internet that are a good laugh from like old school projects that Coops did, or one or two that I did from way back in the day. And I was like, should I hide that? And I'm like, yeah, if people can find it, great, go for it. It's a good laugh.
Well, I'm finding not so much the work that I did when I was a teenager, because I started writing when I was 16 and doing interviews and all that. And if I were to listen to that, I would be crying. Those things are so awful. But when I think back to the music that I liked when I was 10 and 12, that's what I listen to again. Is that the same case for you?
So say again, like the music you listen to then is more or less what you listen to now, or?
Yeah, like when I was 10 years old, based on my age, I bought Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue and MC Hammer's Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em. And I'll still happily listen to both of those. What about you, the music that when you were 10, 12 years old, putting aside, you may not like the songs that you were writing back then, but do you still listen to the same stuff?
Look, me personally, I kind of didn't really discover music, so to speak, of my own till I was kind of 15, 16. Like, I grew up not in a super sheltered church environment or anything like that, but I grew up in a Christian environment, and most of my exposure to music was through church and just kind of top 40 pop radio stuff, that none of which really stuck for me, with the exception of like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, which are always like guilty pleasures. Actually not guilty at all, but just simple pleasures of mine.
I mean, Max Martin wrote so many of those things. And
yeah, exactly.
I love Max Martin's music today.
Yeah, for sure. Max Martin Golden Age definitely sticks around for me to a point. But I think for me, my tastes are very much expanded, and even, I like to think they've radiused out. So I still listen to, stuff like Under Oath and Norma Jean and Thrice and Circa Survivor, stuff that was very formative for me as a, I guess 16 through 22-year-old, I guess, when the band was starting. Like, that sort of stuff always has a very strong attachment for me to that time. But I wouldn't say that's all I listen to. Like, I do still listen to new music. A lot of my favorite stuff I'm listening to now is, kind of more like, I'm not sure what the genre is called. Like, kind of, it's generally like kind of pop R&B. Like, I think that vaporwave is something that refers to some aspects of it. Like, just really kind of chill, like spacious ambient sort of pop with just really thick kind of kick and drive and that sort of thing. Like, I've been really enjoying that sort of stuff. Dark pop, I suppose, as well. So Banks is one of my favorite artists at the moment. So, but I listen to Beartooth and Bring Me the Horizon and Bad Flower, and there's a strong B theme there, I just noticed. But yeah, like, I listen to a bit of everything, and try and engage with those same bands that I used to listen to years ago with what they're doing now. And I don't always have the same emotional connection to it, but it's really enjoyable to kind of look at their journey as a whole and kind of draw from that, and kind of put that over our experiences as well.
Well, if you were late to the music train, late to it being a hobby, what was it before that really took up your time and energy? Was it WWE or basketball or football?
For me, it was, I think, that media sort of stuff. I used to just spend all my free time on the computer just making stuff. So, I mean, Yeah, I play games and PlayStation and stuff, and then Xbox when I
Cool.
made the switch from PS1 to Xbox, and never looked back.
Right on. Right on. There it is.
So,
Flash.
yeah. Although VR on PS5 with Star Wars Squadrons is definitely tempting. But anyway, that's a big tangent for another day. Yeah, I don't know. I used to spend a lot of time just making stuff and creating and kind of reading, and very much existed in the Star Wars world back then. So I read, all the Star Wars extended, what are now called the Legends stories. Like voraciously, I'd devour those. But yeah, I think music kind of started when it was just something that some friends of mine started a band and they needed a bassist, and my dad played bass in his church band. So I had a bass and amp. So that's kind of, I started playing there and worked my way through. So, I mean, it was more of like a circumstantial introduction to music rather than like, this is what I want to do with my life at any given point. It was more like, this is what I can do with what I've got. And I reckon I can do a little bit more. So I'm going to keep trying to do a little bit more, and, step by step ended up here.
And here we are. So it sounds like the one constant is creating, whether it's apps, whether it's what you were just talking about, whether it's music and all that. So obviously everything's on hold. We talked about your latest single before. Is there any band activity that you do know is coming up? Is there anything that's concrete booked? Oh, please tell me.
Yeah, we're definitely looking to pivot. Obviously, the touring is the primary income for any band. So we're trying to, thankfully our band has been successful enough in Australia that as a business, we are actually eligible for some of the JobKeeper stimulus package. So we're actually getting paid a wage from the government at the moment, which means that the money we would normally be paying ourselves left over from the last couple of tours we've done, which we've always tried to space out the money that we earn so that, a couple $100 a week, as opposed to like, a few grand once or twice a year, like just kind of spreading that out through the year. By that coming in from, I guess, the support package, it means that we're actually able to reinvest. So we did Live in Your Lounge, which was a full live stream, full production set that we did 3 months ago. We've got another one happening in just over a month, and looking to do a few more of those through the year. To kind of, and then, working on our Patreon behind the scenes. So how to make that really kind of, set that up so that we can actually over deliver on that and just set up just different alternative streams. Like we're utilizing the time to kind of restructure what we're doing behind the scenes, so we're less dependent on a single stream of what we're doing.
Sure.
Like a single stream of income, a single opportunity. So, we miss touring, and I think we will. If Australia, we've got a bit of a spike in one state, Victoria, at the moment, of cases. But once, if that does settle down before, without spreading to other states, then it's likely that by the end of the year, we might be able to do a handful of 100, 200 cap shows in more regional centers. We're probably more likely to do regional shows than capital city shows for the short term. So we're definitely looking forward to getting back to that. But I think just trying to add a few extra strings to the bow so that if this is still worth doing in some capacity, as we're all getting older, it's harder to dedicate time. So when you've got a measurable income against that time that you're spending on it, it means that, it's more than just an art project. And I mean, if we had to scale back to just being an art project, then we could and probably would do that in time. But for now, the band is something that enables us to, basically pays us to spend time on it. So it's worth sacrificing that time from our other life things.
Yeah.
So, we're just trying to be mature about it, trying to be balanced, and create a healthy lifestyle for ourselves through the music. And, that's more than we ever asked for or expected to happen.
Definitely
So
not
grateful.
just trying, succeeding, well, all thought out. So really glad to hear that. Most musicians are not that thinking. And most people I'm speaking with are going, we'll see what happens. And you go, aren't there crew people that are dependent on you? Yeah, we don't know. So power to you on that. So 2 quick questions. Being respectful of your morning here, morning over there, evening over here,
That's
morning over there. First one is, with all the quarantine and the lockdown, has there been a new TV show that you've discovered that you can recommend?
There's been several. Since lockdown. What was it called? My wife and I just recently watched Unorthodox, which, obviously being a limited series, was amazingly good. I just watched through Freud, which was in German language, which has been, I think we've been exploring a few more, non-English based shows. So, I watch. I'm certainly a long way from fluent, but I do speak a little bit of German. So it's nice to kind of watch things like Freud and Dark, and kind of watch that with subtitles on, but just to kind of help reinforce some of my German.
Right.
But when we get back to Germany, es ist hilflich, es ist hilflich, wenn wir in Deutschland sind. So, it's and it always kind of, just a couple of things on stage always just form. It's funny how just speaking a language, just a few words comfortably and confidently in a context, does actually make a really strong connection. So that's been really cool. What else? We what was it? Just watched The Sinner as well, which was really interesting, kind of like psychological thriller, like crime, true crime. Well, not true crime, just crime drama sort of thing. But it was really good.
What you just said about languages. I know a guy who his American band was just on an indie label, and he learned Japanese, and he went over to Japan and he covered a bunch of songs in Japanese, and all of a sudden Rivers Cuomo from Weezer asked him to form a band that just exists for Japan, where all the songs are in Japanese. So never know.
For sure.
You never know. So in closing, Trenton, any last words for the kids?
Hey, just thanks for sticking out with what we're doing. Thanks for being part of the journey. We know that, in a lot of ways, this thing's been a freight train and people have kind of gotten on and gotten off at different times. And we're just glad that it's still moving. We're glad that we've got momentum, and we're glad that the people are making it possible for us to keep doing what we're doing. And so thank you for that, and stay in touch, and looking forward to the rest of the year and what's ahead.
Awesome. Thank you for giving me so much to work with here, and really hope that you guys get back to New York and the States in the near future. But
you'll forgive us. You'll forgive us for not rushing, but we do look forward to getting back. We certainly haven't been there for the last time, but I think we'd already kind of planned on giving it a little bit of space before Corona hit, and that's obviously just reinforced that. So we'll be back, but hopefully in better circumstances.
Paltrocast.